sometimes what you need to select and work on is more of a colour range rather than an actual figure that you want to isolate. So in this case I'm going to use the image to pick up that colour range and get the image to actually work for me here. I'm going to take a marquee tool and make a pre-selection around these windows. I make sure that I'm on an image layer, so in this case I'm actually on the background, and I go to select and colour range. Now in the colour range, I'm just going to start off by setting the fuzziness to about 40 there. I'm going to sample one pixel, just clicking on a pixel in the brick wall, and shift click a few more representative pixels just to add to that range. And as you can see here, there's more and more white here in the preview. Once I've done that, I'm going to go to selection preview and set that to black matte. This makes it a lot easier to pick out a few more colours. So I'm just going to try my luck at a few more bricks there. I know that if I start picking up all of the bricks, it's going to spill a lot into the background. I'm just going to try a little bit more. Okay, still good. I'm now going to click on localized color clusters here and see if I can just pick up some more. Now you do get a tiny bit of spill there in the background. This is looking quite good. I'm going to try one more. Now if I go in the hat, I will probably pick up too many. I'm just going to try also a little bit in his face, and you see there that I'm possibly picking up a touch too much. The other option is of course to use the minus dropper and click on the spill, but I think we actually end up removing a bit too much. And of course instead of the minus dropper I could use the Option Alt key to take away some of the spill, but I think that's quite good. So I'm going to exit this, okay there, and highlight the top layer and make a curves. What I'm doing with this curve is literally just darkening it down. In some cases, if you haven't really managed to pick up enough, it might be a good idea to blur it, but I think here we're going to be okay. The only thing we have to do is maybe mask a little bit in on his face there. Now let's have a look at this mask. I'm going to option click on the mask, and you see here that you've got a fairly good selection there, but with a bit of spill. So I'm going to just take the brush tool and mask off a bit there with black using 100% and just sweeping off a bit of this spill. Now because this is just a color adjustment, it's not a cutout, and you wouldn't use the selective color for cutouts really. It doesn't isolate things in quite the same way. But because this is just a color adjustment, a very simple one, doesn't matter if I'm a little bit inaccurate, and even if there is a tiny bit of spill, that's okay. You just don't want any very sharp edges. I'm going to X my swatch there and just give his face the benefit of this adjustment fully there. I really want to darken him a bit. So option click back on that mask to see it in normal view, and I'm just going to turn that off for a moment. As you see it there, it's really bland, and then back on again. I'm going to now take some of the saturation off on these bricks. So I'm again clicking on the background there and going to select and color range. And this time when I come in here, I'm looking at the black matte selection preview, because that was what I was on previously. In this case, it's going to work for me. I'm going to, instead of using sample colors, use the yellows range here. And as you can see, it's picked up pretty much all the yellow colors in the image, but not very strongly. So it's going to be only semi-selected, I think. And so it is. You get the warning there that no pixels are more than 50% selected and that the selection edges will not be visible. That's okay. There's still a selection going on there, just not a very strong one. So again, I'm going to just highlight the top layer, as is my habit, and I'm going to go to hue saturation, and I'm literally just going to desaturate this. I'm going to desaturate it all the way, in fact. Now you probably know that I could have gone to the yellow range there without a selection at all and actually just desaturated the yellows a bit there. Here I think it's just about being sufficient to take some of the edge off that yellow. So when I turn that off and back on again, I lose a little bit of that brightness of the yellow. Now the combined effect of these two adjustments here, I'm just going to turn both of these off and back on again. And you see that was a pretty effective selection we made there, and an easy colour adjustment as well. The only thing I think I might do is actually go back to this Curves 5 and blend that to luminosity, because that will desaturate the whole thing a little bit. And then I can double click on that and just deepen it just a touch there. So turning both of those off and back on again, and that's exactly what I wanted to achieve here. Now here's an image that's a bit too contrasty, and I'm going to use the channels and get the channels to work for us and use that, one of the channels here, as a selection. If I click on the red channel and you imagine for a moment here that the channel here is like a save selection, then the highlights here in the sky would be fully selected and his jacket wouldn't be very selected at all. In fact, the blacks, the deepest blacks here, would not be selected at all. But if we turned it on its head, then we could select the jacket and non-select the sky for an adjustment that sort of just lightened the image a little bit. As you know, the image needs a bit of brightening here in the darkest parts. So I'm going to command click on the red channel, and that's loaded these highlights. If I press Q for quick mask here for a moment, you can see there's quite a heavy mask over his jacket here, and the sky hasn't really been masked much at all. Going out of the quick mask, pressing Q, and I'm now going to select inverse to turn this whole selection around. And as you can see here, now it's looking a little bit flatter here in the quick mask, but trust me, it's actually now selected the shadows. I'm going to put just a curve on this one and lift up the curve. In fact, I'm just going to lift the highlights there a little bit, although the highlights aren't really affected in the image. There might be some highlights just lurking in that suit somewhere, just to brighten that. And looking now at the mask, option click on the mask, you can see there that the sky is almost totally black here. So that means that this adjustment we just did, this lightening adjustment we just did, is masked off in the sky. It's not really having any effect in the sky. And you see in his jacket it's having almost a full effect. So just option click to get back there, and you can see if I turn off this layer, you've also got a little bit more life in those bricks. Now I'm going to just backtrack a touch here on this top part of the curve. When I make selections based on a color range or on a channel, I tend to make them the actual adjustment to it very, very simple. If you make adjustments here that are too clever, you tend to get some funny breakups. So all this does is simply lighten those pixels that were selected. You may also ask me, why don't you blur this mask? Well, I see no need to blur the mask because it's targeted exactly the pixels that I wanted to select here. So it's done the job fully. So here I've shown you two alternative methods that let you make a colour or luminance-based selection in a very effective and easy way.